Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching the budget special episode of our show Arthniti. Today we're going to talk about Indian Railways. Now, Indian Railways is the third largest network in the world under single management with over 68,103 route kilometers. Now, railway passenger traffic is projected to reach around 12 billion per year by 2031 and freight traffic is expected to cross 8,220 million tons by the same year, that is 2031. Now, Indian Railways revenue growth has also been strong over the years. In financial year 2023, that is until October 2022, the revenue was 16.56 billion US dollars. Freight remains the key revenue earning segment for the Indian Railways, accounting for approximately 75% of the total revenue in financial year 2022, followed by the passenger segment. Now, Railways is aiming to achieve 100% electrification by 2023. 83% of broad gauge network has already been electrified up to November 2022. According to some media reports, Railway Ministry has sought gross budgetary support of about 2 trillion rupees this year in the budget, the highest ever and up by more than a third from the outlay for the current fiscal. And this has been done citing the increased pace of capacity creation in the sector. So what is expected for railways in this year's budget? What are the key focus areas and how has Indian Railways performed on various metrics? For a detailed discussion on this, today we have with us a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Mr. Sudhendu Sinha is here with us. He is Advisor, Transport and Infrastructure Connectivity in NITI Aayog. Welcome, Mr. Sinha. We're also joined by Mr. Sachin. He's the former MD of Dedicated Freight Corridor as well. And we also have with us an industry representative, Mr. Sachin Bhanushali, is joining us, Chairman of CII's National Committee on Railways. Welcome, Mr. Bhanushali, you as well, to the studios, to the show rather. Let's begin first by trying to understand, the state of Indian Railways. And I'll start with you, Mr. Sinha. How do you, put Indian Railways vis-a-vis not only the global rail network, but also given the fact that it's a humongous organization catering to a large segment of population, both in terms of passenger and freight services?
So I would say that it is rightly called lifeline of the nation because it is able to connect to the farthest place of the country. And of late, the new trends that we are watching is that in areas which were infrastructurally deficit, that is the area where very emphatic footprints of railways are going into. Northeast, for example, Arunachal, for example. Those mountainous areas where railways had not hitherto been there, now railways are going on there. So that is a big thing, big change that is being brought. In addition to that, you mentioned about that railways has given a commitment that by 2030 they are going to be net zero emitter. By that is meant that the entire approach has to be based on sustainability. So the kind of energy consumption that they are going to do, everything has to be, this has to be changed. Of late, there is still a bigger focus on passengers because earlier it was, of course, it was the freight that was the sole bread and butter earning. So, the passengers were put on the by lanes, but now that is the focus.
Okay.
So all the 7,172 odd stations with Indian Railways, they are being kind of given a facelift. Capacity is being augmented over there.
Solarization of the railways.
Yes, solarization of railways. Yes, precisely. All the platforms are being. So you can see. Let's start from Delhi only. Delhi only. If you see the quality of sanitation and hygiene standards at the station that you meet these days, that is something unheard of a decade back. So probably this is the change that has been brought about, and that is why we have been able to sensitize the younger generation also that what railways can do, and that is what they are doing it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Passenger, are in focus. Passengers are back in focus. The passenger services and the infrastructure connected with that part as well. But let me bring in Mr. Sachin here as well. Mr. Sachin, that being said, freight still continues to, be the largest revenue growth, earner for railways. In fact, freight is one segment which brings money to the table for railways. So how would you, analyze the journey of freight traffic and railways so far, and where do we stand today? Is it corresponding in terms of the money which this segment is earning and the amount of money which is spent there for further capacity augmentation?
Yeah, Vishal, you said very correctly that the freight is our main source of earning. In fact, as on date, we earn almost 62% of the total revenue from the freight. And from the passenger earning, we get hardly 24%. So this is a very, very serious concern for us because in 1950, we used to have a freight share of 85%. And that has come down to 28% now. So it's a very, very serious concern, and this is a very focus area for us. And Indian Railways is doing a lot of work on this area, such as dedicated freight corridor, which will be a totally dedicated freight trains will run. And in this corridor, which will connect Delhi to Mumbai and Jalandhar to Sonnagar in Bihar. And this network of 3,000 kilometers will provide a huge mobility as far as freight traffic is concerned. And I'm sure this freight corridor will help in increasing the speed of passenger train also, because freight trains will shift into the dedicated freight corridor and the passenger trains will run with a full speed.
Okay. That indeed would have been my next question. Does it solve the problem of the speed? Because in the freight sector, a larger question has been for the businesses, most of the businesses which use the railway freight services is the speed part.
That's right. Another focus area I'll say for the Indian Railway is passenger satisfaction. Passenger satisfaction means your train should run with full 100% punctuality and there should be a speed. So this focus area also will get solved when the freight trains will shift to dedicated freight corridor and passenger trains will run with a better efficiency.
Yes. Okay. We'll talk about other parts as well, but let's also hear the industry's point of view. Mr. Bhanushali is here with us. Mr. Bhanushali, how would you assess the situation of Indian Railways in the present day? From where we've started way back and the place where we stand in different segments. Majorly, we're looking at both freight and passenger. And most importantly, from the industry's point of view, how does industry see its attachment or its partnership with Indian Railways?
Okay, thanks, Vishal. I think in one line, if we can express performance of Indian Railways as well as expectation from Indian Railways is that much has been done, but yet a lot is yet to be done. In terms of quality of service, in terms of passenger satisfaction, in terms of freight traffic, which is being carried by Indian Railways, the performance of Indian Railways has been significantly better as compared to maybe about a decade ago. But one must look at the concerns as to what does the industry look at and what does the Indian Railways as a product offer to the industry. So one place where the shoe pinches is high transit time. High transit time arises primarily out of a railway's inability or unwillingness to give what are normally called service level assurances. So whenever cargo is handed over for the purpose of transportation, by what time would it reach at the destination is still an uncertainty. Though over a period of time, average speeds have gone up, the obstacles as well as the incidences of trains getting stable en route, etc., also has gone down. But yet the speed of rail traffic as compared to speed of road traffic continues to be at par.
Okay.
Indian Railways will have to increase its average transit time. And here I'm not talking about speed. Average transit time is the handing over of cargo at point of origin to handing over back the cargo at the destination as per the contract. Unless this is significantly better than road transport, I don't think the big shift that we are expecting as per the National Rail Plan to go up from current level of 27% to 40% of market share, modal share, is likely to take place.
Okay.
Secondly, the industry over a period of time has moved from infrastructure-based industry to manufacturing industry, both in industrial as well as in consumer space. While Indian Railways have done a yeoman service as far as the fundamental characteristic of economy, which is the infrastructure industry is concerned, you may take coal, minerals, food grain, fertilizer, petroleum, iron and steel, coal for the purpose of thermal power, All these sectors, Indian Railways has done a great service. But when it comes to manufactured products, which is normally carried in smaller parcel sizes and originates and terminates at multiple locations, I think there is a lot to be done for Indian Railways.
Okay.
So for this purpose, Indian Railways would need to develop under their Gati Shakti initiative, Gati Shakti cargo terminals at multiple locations. Many of their existing terminals will have to be converted into clean cargo terminals where containerized cargo can be handled. Secondly, the way Indian Railways have come out with a transit assurance scheme only on one segment, in the export from NCR to the West Coast ports. Similar transit assurances will have to come across the network so that in domestic space as well, the share of Indian Railways will increase.
Okay.
As far as the need of the industry is concerned, the need of industry, as I mentioned, is small parcel size and multiple OD combinations.
Okay.
In order to facilitate this, humongous number of container terminals, clean cargo terminals will have to be built from which originating cargo can be aggregated and sent to multiple locations.
Okay.
One area where Indian Railways probably need to change their commercial policies that today it is based entirely on weight and distance. Whereas transit time normally plays a very important role as far as commercial contracts with any transporter are concerned.
Okay.
So if you're going over a longer distance, instead of charging higher freight, you should actually be charging lower freight. It's basically the transit time related, service level assurance related freight which will have to be brought in. So dynamic pricing policy is something which will have to be brought in by Indian Railways.
Okay.
So there's much which has been done, but there is yet a lot which needs to be done.
Okay. Very interesting, but very important points there made by Mr. Bhanushali, and some of them overlapping with what we were earlier discussing. Now, what Mr. Bhanushali is saying and what the National Rail Plan also says, I'll start with you, Mr. Sinha. The Gati Shakti terminals, cargo terminals were announced, and work is already going on them as well. The NRP, the aim of the NRP, how do we achieve that? As Mr. Bhanushali pointed out, there are various areas because it will have to be done keeping in mind the demands of the industry as well. When we're talking about, freight corridor, it has to cater to the industry, it has to cater to the manufacturers, small cargoes as well, small parcels. They will have to be taken into consideration. Dynamic pricing part.
Now, very correct. You see, if I were to just identify 3 or 4 principal challenges that railways are facing today, and that is being addressed in a very, very positive manner. First one would be that in the project governance stream, the delays, the time and the cost overruns. Now, PM Gati Shakti has come. That has tried to bring about, it is a kind of game changer in the entire stream of project governance. So now you have got the entire visibility, you know that this much is the fund, your requirements, the project has been correctly kind of conceived. So with that, it is expected that the time and cost overruns would come down in a substantial way. That is the first thing. Second is, as it was mentioned, that the network did not expand over a period of time, and that led to congestion.
Okay.
And once the network gets congested, majority of the sections and subsections of Indian Railways, the 7 high-density network routes, what we call, the majority of them are saturated. So it is more than 100%. So that is the kind of saturation level. In the event of such saturation, what do we do normally? In the same way as we do in case of cardiac intervention, you go for bypasses, you increase the terminal capacity, you increase the speed. So many interventions you take so that you are able to debottleneck that particular section and you make it fluid. But there is a limit to that. After one stage, you have to go for a fresh, newly laid lines. DFC, for example, the way Mr. Sachin has been explaining, DFC, for example, is one method.
Okay.
So that is another initiative that is being taken. Another challenge after the network congestion is, and the capacity constraint is, that of the passenger experience. Why passenger? Even freight customers experience. Once they are hitting a railway office, for example, for their own commercial activities, it should be absolutely seamless kind of thing. That calls for a lot of digital intervention. Why should a customer not be able to see the availability of wagon? He should be able to see each and everything. He doesn't need to visit anywhere. It is good that it is being taken, but I would say that instead of patchwork kind of the initiative,
Okay.
it needs a complete concerted and holistic initiative is required. And that is there. And so if we are able to handle all of them, it is a concatenated kind of stuff. It is not a distributed thing. All of them are linked to each other. So once we are able to address to these problems, and it is being done, not that it is not being done. I must appreciate that this time railways are absolutely, they are in buoyancy. They are doing the work, the kind of initiative that is being taken, and the speed, the pace at which it is being taken, that is something phenomenal. But still, the way it was told by Mr. Bhanushali, miles to go.
Okay. Now one more question, is as per the reports, and I was pointing out earlier as well, the gross budgetary support which has been sought this time is approximately 2 trillion rupees, and that's a substantial hike. So 30% hike, and so 30% is substantial. Although there has been a constant increase in the budgetary support for railways over the years since the railway budget was amalgamated with the union budget. But how do you justify this 30% hike? If this money which has been sought, and what are the areas where this money will be spent?
Naturally, capacity constraint is one area where I mentioned passenger and freight customers' experience is another area that I have mentioned. Digital intervention is the third area that has been projects to be completed in time is the fourth area. But there is an amazing change that you must appreciate. First is, hitherto, railways were always crying that we don't have money. Where is the money to do the work? Now here is a government who says all money is available. You perform, you do the work. So this is something that is the change. Now it's time that railway men, the railway engineers, and the entire team railway I would call them, they have to perform kind of thing. So they have to keep on moving from one milestone to another, laying down one record to another, saying that, okay, 10 kilometers per day. This is what we are able to do. In so many difficult stretches, we have been able to negotiate. So that is what is needed. It's something, it's something as a tremendous satisfaction for each and every railwayman, I would say, that there is no constraint of finances. Government is saying, money is available. It is right available. So you perform. So the call is basically to perform, to show the results, and if the way the team is moving, I would say that it is translating all those initiatives into very, very positive outcomes. I would
Mr. Sachin, would you agree with that? That
yes, certainly
there is enough money. Yes. Now the question is how to utilize that money in an optimal manner and on focus areas. And if those focus areas, what are the key areas where we need to focus on?
I'll further add to what Mr. Sinha has stated, that we are running 22,000 trains every day and we are carrying 10 million passengers every day and almost 4 million tons of freight every day. And the entire passenger traffic and the freight traffic is moving mainly in Golden Quadrilateral. Almost 80% of the traffic is moving in that. So entire Golden Quadrilateral is saturated. So the biggest priority for us was to increase our infrastructure, increase our network. So for that, the Gati Shakti initiative which has been taken, they have identified 136 critical and super critical projects, which are very, very important to increase the mobility. And with a very focused approach, these projects are being handled. And besides this, there are some 100 Gati Shakti cargo terminals have been planned, and out there 14 have already been commissioned. So in these Gati Shakti cargo terminals, all the stakeholders have been taken into account. Their requirements, etc., have been taken into account, which I'm sure will increase the mobility and bring down the logistic cost in our country.
Now, before I go back to Mr. Bhanushali, one more aspect, when we earlier spoke about passenger amenities, facilities for passenger traffic, it's not just amenities, it's also safety. And safety is equally important in the freight sector as well. So what is being done there, because this is an area where a lot of focus was required, a lot of projects were started, a lot of technology was brought in as well. Where do we stand today and what more needs to be done?
So I would put it this way, that if you see the last 10 years kind of thing, year after year, there has been improvement in the safety. In fact, now railways are in a position to claim that we have got zero fatality accident. Of course, one can't say that there is no accident, but in accident, fatality does not take place. What does it imply? It implies that the factor of safety that is embedded in the design, in the construction of the coaches, of the tracks, everything, for example, the kind of enginemanship of the drivers are there, everything has been improved upon in a way so that that factor of safety is being achieved. So you have got the best of the coaches which are kind of crash, they are crash, they do not get crashed so fast. Similarly, the safety, as I said, that safety is being achieved in different ways and means. And multiple initiatives have been taken. I would say that majority of them are mechanical, digital interventions are there that is taking these safety standards. And that is what is showing results on the ground. Yes.
Okay. So safety is being taken care of, those aspects there. Mr. Bhanushali, the 2 trillion gross budgetary support demand, as I was asking Mr. Sinha and Mr. Sachin here as well. Now, where would the industry would want that money to be spent? And then, you spoke about various areas, focus areas in terms of dynamic pricing, in terms of ensuring that, the freight corridors are working at their optimal level as well. Transit time issues. But apart from that, when we're talking about the capacity, upgradation or capacity building, infrastructure there as well, this is a huge amount of money. Where would industry want that to be spent? That's one. In which area? And what can industry bring to the table?
Vishal, there is always a dichotomy, whether you want network capacity or whether you want rolling stock capacity. I'm a person squarely in favor of network capacity over rolling stock capacity, because only if you have adequate network capacity, which includes route capacity as well as adequate availability of terminals for the type of cargo which is to be handled, you will not be able to carry in spite of putting as many rolling stock wagons as well as locomotive that you can put on tracks. In fact, as the trains slow down, which has happened over a period of time, the wagons become warehouses on wheels. That's not the idea. Apart from the cost of transportation, there is a significant contribution of cost of carrying inventory, which results into logistics cost. And that's why I'm a firm believer that if Indian Railways invest big time in network capacity, which includes dedicated freight corridor, which will cover the GQ and GD as they call it now, Golden Quadrilateral and Golden Diagonals, and develop adequate number of clean cargo terminals as well as terminals where bulk cargo is going to be handled, I think a large part of work will be done. And in order to achieve what has been designated to be the target under the National Rail Plan, which is a humongous target, I think Indian Railways will have to, as Mr. Sinha mentioned, hasten the speed of implementation of these projects. I also see some amount of dissonance, some amount of noise with respect to focus on dedicated freight corridor. There are certain conflicting messages which come in the public view, wherein there seems to be a attention shifting away from dedicated freight corridor, and new ideas like elevated corridor, semi-high-speed rail network over the GQ and GD, etc. being discussed. My personal suggestion as well as submission to the Minister of Railways is very simple. Develop dedicated freight corridor on all the 4 sides of the Golden Quadrilateral and the Golden Diagonal, the 6 links which will connect the heart and the rest of the body of Indian economy. Develop terminals at all existing important locations. Say take up 200 odd locations where clean cargo terminals, including container handling facilities, can be developed. Thirdly, focus on service levels and change the current distance weight based pricing to dynamic pricing. This will result into manufacturing industry coming into the fold of Indian Railways. And as far as the passenger requirement is concerned, going back to a little to the safety, passenger primarily requires 3 things: safety, punctuality, and cleanliness. And I think on all these 3 counts, Indian Railways seems to be doing very well as far as the new initiatives are concerned. Vande Bharat trains, particularly the version 2, is also going to take us in significantly in that direction. So the idea of elevated corridors, idea of having a semi-high-speed network across Indian Railways and not concentrating on dedicated freight corridor, I think are not the greatest of prescriptions as far as Indian Railways health, as well as ability to cater to say 40% of the modal share in Indian transportation industry is concerned. So that would be my request to the Honorable Minister of Railways.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sure those in the policy making would be hearing that. Mr. Sinha is already here. Mr. Sinha, last question before we bring this to an end. Can we expect, some big announcements vis-a-vis railways in the budget in terms of the focus areas which we've spoken about? Because, areas like cargo terminals, areas like dedicated freight corridors, Vande Bharat Express, these all are projects which are ongoing. So is there going to be a budgetary support for the ongoing projects, or something else is also in the offing?
What is important is that you have to identify those projects which can have bigger impact, and where the throw forward, that is the requirement of money, is less. They have to be completed immediately, because you can't keep on waiting with those projects. That is one area. But yes, railways every year comes out with some things which are absolutely welcomed by the industry as well as by the passengers. This has been a kind of trend since last almost 6 to 8 years I have been watching, and we do expect something great. Yes, why not?
Okay. So let's wait and watch as to what the budget holds for Indian Railways. Thank you so much, Mr. Sinha, Mr. Sachin, as well as Mr. Bhanushali also, who joined us and shared his views and insight. Once again, we'll come back with a different sector, focus on trying to find out how that sector has been doing, what is expected in the next financial year for that particular sector in our special presentation of Arthniti, that is Budget Special. But today, this was all about railways. Where do we stand? A lot of work has already been done as far as Indian Railways are concerned, but there is a lot of scope as the experts and the industry representatives are also pointing out. So there it is. Keep watching Sansad Television, and we'll keep on bringing you all the details of the union budget and other related aspects also. Thank you.